Welcome to the Scale Up Valley podcast, where we bring the best tech leaders in the world to share with you how to scale a company from 2 million to 100 million ARR. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Zohar Dayan, co-founder and CEO at Wibbitz. Zohar, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
So you are based in New York these days, correct?
Yeah, we're based in New York City. You can see the city here behind me.
That's an amazing landscape on your background. So let's get to know a little bit more about yourself. So how did you start Wibbitz?
Yeah, so a bit about my background. So I grew up half my life here in New York, where I was born, and actually moved to Israel with my parents when I was a teenager. Israel has a very expansive tech ecosystem, and I kind of gotten attracted and interested in technology from a very young age, and kind of started to learn how to code and do software development as well as graphic design. And animation when I was still a teenager. Started when I was about 14 or 15 years old. Actually had a couple of startups when I was in middle school and high school. So kind of always had that entrepreneurial drive within me. Had to go to the army when I was 18. There's mandatory army service in Israel. So I kind of took a break from the tech stuff and joined the paratroopers unit, so less of coding and more jumping out of airplanes for 3 years. But I feel like that also gave me a lot of tools and skill sets to be able to kind of manage a team and manage a company. So I think that combination between my previous experience in the Army really gave me a lot. When I got out, went to school, and actually founded Wibbitz during my last year of college, and been doing that pretty much ever since, almost 8 years in the running.
And that's awesome. I saw on your kind of LinkedIn background that this is your third company, and the first one was kind of 6 years, the second one 10 years, and now you are already with 9. So since 2010, if I'm not wrong. So which means that you are really persistent and you really go for the decade, as we usually discuss on entrepreneurship. Scaling a company takes a long period of time.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously my passion. I love kind of building things and taking ideas from imagination to reality. And like you said, scaling up a company really takes up a lot of time, and to do it in the right way. And obviously you learn more as you go. So it's really exciting kind of to see that evolve and kind of like a child that you see growing up. And I think, for entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs or first-time entrepreneurs, it's really important to kind of be very enthusiastic and passionate about your idea and about your company, because in the good scenario, if things go well and you continue to grow it and evolve it, it's a journey that takes quite a long time. And if you're not really passionate, it's going to be very hard to be dedicated to that cause.
Absolutely. And it was very interesting that you start by saying the way you kind of build your own skills and how important it was the army to build also your own leadership skills, which are really important to keep, for instance, being very resilient across all the crises that comes in any startup and any scale up in different stages of growth. So it's very interesting to see that we always discuss what are the VPs that we should hire, in what order, that maybe a VP that is able to help you scale from 2 to 10 or from 10 to 20 will not be the one that will help us to get from 20 to 50 million. But very few times we discuss about the way we need to transform ourselves as CEOs to be able to not become the bottleneck of growth of the company. So in terms of the key transitions after product market fit, what were the skills that you needed to develop in order to keep helping the company to scale?
Well, I think every stage requires you to kind of adapt to it and change it and make the changes across the team to be able to kind of handle those changes. And I think, one of the hardest things for me, I think, as someone who likes to be very hands-on, especially when it comes to product, and because I have a software development background, to kind of dig in deeper into the technology. But I think one of the lessons that I learned, that with every stage of evolution in the company, and as the company grows, you need to be kind of take a step back all the time. And in order to do that, you need to be able to trust the teams and the leaders that you have across the different teams. And I think it's definitely a learning process. It was a learning process for me. And, to be honest, it's still a learning process, because every stage is different. And what, worked well for you in the past doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work well for you in the future. And I think one of the things that we pride ourselves at Wibbitz is we're not afraid to make changes. And we make these changes, and we make them while knowing that we might change them later. If they don't work as we expected. And it's part of our values, actually, at the company, is to take intelligent risks. So we try to live up to that value and constantly evolve. And for myself, it's always kind of letting go more, delegating more to the teams, and really giving autonomy, to my leadership team, as well as to their teams as well.
Right. It's curious to see, especially the ones who start joining yourself as ads in the first stage. They also witness how difficult it is for the CEO kind of go from a doer to much more a direction setter, a communicator, as you said, giving them empowerment, telling them what is the vision, waking up and remembering what was the mission, why did we start, what are the values, what we stand for. And sometimes then we see the bottleneck coming to the leadership team itself, which they are not also letting it go, and the company can't scale if we can start building also the third layer of leadership and having a lot of teams. So how do you help your key members of your leadership team also to go through all these transitions?
Well, something that I like to do with my leadership team is to try and have them think like CEOs. And each one of them is a CEO or like a CEO of their own different team. And to really know and trust their team, to know how can they delegate to their team, and how can they help their team kind of do their job in a better and more efficient way. And not to be, like you said before, the bottleneck when it comes to their own respective domains in the company. And it's really a lot about focusing, prioritizing, and de-stressing the team, because sometimes you get a lot of different things that you want to do. The teams are very excited and passionate that they want to do and accomplish a lot of different things at the same time, but sometimes that creates a lot of stress. And what we've seen is that when people are stressed, when the leadership team is stressed, and when the entire company is stressed, productivity goes down significantly. So we always try to have our finger on the pulse when it comes to the stress level throughout the company, and what we can do, what I can do as a CEO, and what my leadership team can do as leaders in the company to de-stress and refocus the teams in the company in the most efficient way possible.
It's very good points. I think that two very good key takeaways are really helping them to think as CEOs. And we always discuss that a very good VP is not someone who only owns his own function, but who really understands the company as a whole, as a business. And definitely the best teams, the majority of them, if they want, they can become CEOs in their next journey. Absolutely, and start their own company.
Exactly, and we really try to pride ourselves with transparency throughout the company. So everything, all the tools, all the data is literally available to pretty much everyone within the organization. And I think that really helps them and gives them the right tools to get, that big picture way of thinking and to make better and wiser decisions.
What was the most difficult VP to hire so far?
It's a tough question. And I think what we like to do and have done mostly is grow people from within the company, because we've had the experience of, hiring people in key positions in the company from the outside. And we've learned that that doesn't necessarily work very well. And what worked for us the best to date is growing leaders from within the company. And that's how we plan on doing things in the future as well.
That's a very good point. And especially in companies where we have a little bit more time to grow, we usually say, if we were not able to promote someone from within, clearly we have failed, because it means that we didn't have the right training programs in progress, learning and development. We didn't provide the tools, so the failure is ours in the first.
And they know the company, as best as possible. They've seen it grow, they've seen it evolve, they've seen it change, and in my opinion, that gives them a lot of clarity on kind of where we were in the past, what we're doing today, and how we can do better in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. You also talked a lot about de-stressing and refocus. I love the two words, by the way, also the CEO analogy. And I think this is one of the issues. When we have the right team in place, when we have the right culture, the right energy, the right vibe, the right belief, that's a word that I also love. I think that's the CEO needs to believe, and that's why he's also able to raise funds and to go through all the temptations and all the failures along the journey, and also to attract the ones who work with him for this vision because of the belief. And those also need to believe to also be able to contagiate the other ones who work with him. And with belief comes also, I believe, focus, using the word again. And this can be, again, very, very difficult. So when we are opening up, when we are scaling, and we typically discuss, okay, let's open 3 new markets, let's work on enterprise, mid-market, small business, let's work financial services, telcos, manufacturing, everywhere. So how did you start killing some initiatives and some avenues of growth so we can really scale? How did you face all those decisions and temptations to scale?
Well, it's something that we face all the time, honestly. There are always a lot of great ideas and a lot of very interesting opportunities that we come across. And, we raise those conversations up in our leadership meetings. So we have, every week we meet as a leadership team. We're scattered between a few different offices. So it's typically done through video conference. And we alternate every week between updates. So, a good way to sync and kind of align everybody and what's going on in order to get that big picture throughout the entire company. And the next week, we would do a brainstorming session. So anybody on the leadership team can write down topics that they want to discuss or brainstorm with the rest of the leadership team. And a lot of those topics are typically, how do we prioritize, one thing over another? And how do we plan our roadmap that we can kind of convey and communicate to the entire company? And I think one of the best things that help us do that is that every quarter we meet up face to face in one of our offices or in one of the cities actually that our offices are located, and kind of go off site for 3 days, really kind of look at the previous quarter, what we've accomplished, how are we measuring up from what we plan to do and what we actually executed, and what do we want to achieve in the future? And we always try to think 6 to 12 months ahead, as well as kind of break that down to the shorter term as well. And I think those kind of meetings and offsites really help us to kind of step back, take a look at what we've accomplished, where are we compared to where we wanted to be, and how do we plan that again for the future, and what we focus on. And it's really amazing to see at the end of that quarter, typically, we see that we've made a very big impact on those key areas that we chose to focus on in the previous quarter. And that really creates a very good cadence for us and for the entire team to be able to constantly reprioritize and refocus our efforts in order to make the maximum level of impact. After those offsites, we have an all hands meeting where we kind of update the entire company on everything that was discussed in the offsite and why are we making certain decisions. We really try to have the entire team understand the reasons behind those decisions, and it's not just we decided it's this way and we kind of shove it down people's throat. A matter of trying to make people understand the reasons, and also make them fully aware that nothing is set in stone. And if anybody has, objections or ideas or suggestions, we're always open to hearing that in order to create a really healthy conversation within the company.
Very good point, and all about the power of accountability and peer pressure that also works very well. So if we need to kind of see each other at least every week and talk about what we are committing to do next week and how it aligns with what we agreed in the quarterly and how it aligns with the next 12 months and how it aligns with the vision, then we can keep vigilant of each other that we are all moving into the right direction. So very, very good points about, and just to tune in our audience, we've been discussing a lot the way the CEO needs to evolve and needs to change in order to not become the bottleneck of growth. Also the way he needs to help his leadership team and his management team to also grow quicker than the company. Then we discussed the strategy, the clarity, the priority, the focus, and now we were discussing some of the rhythms that Zohar is using to kind of lead the team into the direction of the big, airy, audacious goal. And of course, some of those milestones are important to prove the metrics that we need in order to assure that we have the appropriate cash or the right level of cash flow, again, to execute those priorities. So what were your lessons through the different rounds that you have raised, seed, Series A, Series B, and Series C in October 2017? Some of your investors, Kima Ventures, Horizon Ventures, TF1 Group, among others. So what were the main lessons? And let's focus, because here it's typically after product market fit. So let's focus on the Series B and on the Series C. So what were the main lessons there?
I think, with every funding round, it's a matter of choosing the right investors and who is going to help you kind of bring your company to the next level. And I think it's always good to find the right fit when it comes to investors, and it's not always easy. And you need a lot of patience. And I think the investors do their due diligence. I think it's up to the entrepreneurs and the company to do their own due diligence as well when it comes to investors. And I think that's one of the lessons that we've definitely learned throughout the funding processes that we've had in the future, and really to create that healthy dialogue within our investors as well. A lot of them have great experience from the past. They've been through many of the challenges that we're going through with other companies, and every company goes through challenges, and to create that healthy dialogue with them. I think that's something that we've definitely have learned and always try to do even better.
Absolutely. And nowadays we are always discussing one rule that was kind of explained or written in a famous blog by one of the partners of Matrix Battery Ventures. Apologies for that, Agro, which says that so in terms of the world-class standards of scaling a company from 2 million to 100 million, we might want to triple 2 times and double 3 times. So 2 to 6, 6 to 18, triple 2, and then double 3, which is 18 to 36 million, 36 to 72, and 72 to 144, or 100 plus, which is the main goal of having a company which is valued by 1P that can go public or get an acquisition from a larger incumbent. So and nowadays we also have an opposite trend. So and some of the ones who are preaching a very opposite trend are the ones who raised venture capital before and who are starting up again their own companies and want to go for a more organic way. So do you believe that we really need to double and triple our companies if we want to be in the VC industry?
I think at the end of the day, it depends on the company, and I think what we believe in is healthy growth, and we've seen for many examples in the past, a lot of them actually very recently, where you see these companies that have hyper growth. They need to raise very, very big rounds of funding in order to continue and fuel that growth. Because a lot of that growth is really fueled by investing a lot more in your marketing and R&D and so forth, where in some cases you get wrapped up into a very vicious and sometimes dangerous cycle, because with every round of funding, your valuation grows, the expectation grows, and sometimes you're really creating something that is not really reflecting the value of your company. And I really believe that, creating that healthy type of growth is something that's super important, that a lot of entrepreneurs that I speak to in my circles are really focusing on these days. And I think, going, especially in the beginning, through the organic way, that would be the smartest way. Really understanding, very early stages, even pre-funding, trying to get to the right product market fit, trying to, prove the model, refine that model, make sure that you know how to generate revenue while being as scrappy as possible, and then raise that money to facilitate that growth. I think that is probably the healthiest way, and what I hear a lot recently, as opposed to kind of raising more money, 3 months later raising another significant round of funding, valuation doubles, and so forth. In some cases it works. Some cases it works for a little bit, but then we see what can potentially happen.
Yeah, but do you think that the founders always should have the kind of the pressure on themselves to try to double and triple every single year? But what you are saying is not at any cost, right?
Exactly. And I think you should always try to think, if you get to a certain milestone, okay, how do we now double that? I don't know if it's necessarily in 1 year or how many years. It depends on the company's stage. But yeah, I think you should really have a plan and detailed and feasible way of doing that.
Okay, we are coming to the end of the show, and so I would like to still ask, before going to our last questions, that is our favorite one in the show. What is ahead for Wibbitz? So what are some of your plans for the future of Wibbitz?
So we have a lot of very exciting plans for Wibbitz. I think especially in 2020, Our goal from the beginning has been to get Wibbitz in as many hands of content professionals as possible. And we have a lot of very exciting new things that are coming out that are continue to kind of expand our offering to different customer segments and continue to really raise the bar when it comes to video content creation. And really, our goal is to give people the freedom to create. So really giving people the opportunity, people who are not necessarily video professionals or video creators and don't have any experience whatsoever when it comes to creating video content, and giving them the power to create professional, premium, high quality content in the quickest and easiest way possible.
Definitely, this is the timing, and it's good to count on your execution and on your vision. So, and if you would have the opportunity to sit down with yourself 9 years ago when you were starting up Wibbitz, so what advice would you offer to yourself?
I can give a lot of advice. Obviously, you learn a lot. You make a lot of mistakes along the way, and I could give tons of advice on finding the right product market fit, finding the right investors. How do you structure the best revenue model that reflects your product's value? But I was thinking about this, and I think my main piece of advice to my younger self would be to learn how to pause sometimes. Because as young entrepreneurs, we're very, very driven. We want to accomplish everything. And we need to remember that, if we want to do things right, if we want to take this idea to the next level and to create something truly, truly big, this is going to take a lot of time. And it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's really knowing how to pace yourselves and not getting burnt out along the way. And it's something that, I've learned throughout the years because grinding 24/7 nonstop for so long really affects you. It affects your decision making, and most importantly, it affects your team. And I think it really trickles down to the entire company. We talked about stress levels before, and it's one of those ways that you can help your entire team. And it's something that we really focus on at Wibbitz, and it's actually one of our values. One of our values at Wibbitz is pause and play. We're a video company, so it's a play on
exactly.
And video, but when you think about it, it's really about knowing when to take a moment to stop, to reflect on what you've done and what you've accomplished, what you've learned, as well as knowing how to celebrate those achievements and wins, and knowing how to kind of play together as a team. And appreciating the moment before moving on to the next challenge. And it's something that, we try to promote across the entire company. We actually have something called Pause and Play Days. So every month, everybody in the entire company gets a long weekend. And we encourage people to take that day to spend time outdoors, to travel, to do something good for yourself, to spend time with family. And we believe, and we've actually seen that people are much more productive on the day-to-day, and they really maximize their time and resources with a much clearer mind. And a clear mind creates a much more creative mind, in my opinion.
Absolutely. There is definitely not only a startup roller coaster, but also a scale-up roller coaster. Jason Lemkin loves to talk about that. Usually it's year 7, founders start to be completely burned out, and he suggests some tips in order to try to calm down, sometimes even go 2 weeks out of the office, or just go 4 weeks and go half a day work and another half a day just go to see a movie or walk outside. It's very interesting to see, and this happens, of course, to all who are with us on these journeys with the CEO. Very, very good points. Thank you so much, Zohar. It was really a lot of fun and a lot of value.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Perfect. And to our community, thank you so much for listening us. You already know that we are always happy to get feedback about what are the topics and the guests that will serve you the best on helping you to get from 2 million to 100 million ARR. So see you next week, and thank you so much for joining.